Title: Don't Answer the Door Hook. At exactly 3 a.m., the knocking started. It was always 3 knocks, slow, rhythmic, hollow. And every night, when Jake peered through the peephole, there was no one there. At first, he thought it was a prank, maybe the wind rattling the door or some teenager messing around, but the knocking never failed. Same time, same pattern, same chilling emptiness on the other side, and then, one night, he made a mistake. He answered it. The first night, Jake had only been living in his new apartment for a week when it started. A small place on the outskirts of town, cheap and quiet, exactly what he needed. But then came the knocking. At 3 a.m. on the dot, he woke to the sound. 3 distinct knocks. He held his breath, listening. Silence. He crept to the door, peering through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Just the dim flicker of a dying light bulb casting unsettling shadows. Jake shook his head, blaming lack of sleep, and went back to bed. But the knocking returned. Every night. Always at 3 a.m., and it was getting louder. The fear sets in. By the 4th night, Jake was rattled. He barely slept, expecting the knocks. This time, when they came, he grabbed his phone and started recording. 3 a.m., knock, knock, knock. He held his breath, staring at the screen. He played the recording back. Silence. His hands turned cold. He had heard it, felt it vibrate through the floor. But his phone hadn't recorded anything. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Breaking the rule. On the 7th night, he had enough. He wasn't going to be afraid of his own home. When the knocking came, he rushed to the door. "Who's there?" His voice trembled. No response. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He gritted his teeth and grabbed the doorknob, and he turned it. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit hallway, empty. Relief flooded his chest. He laughed at himself. "Just my imagination," he muttered. Then, as he turned to close the door, a cold breath brushed against his neck, and from inside his apartment, a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have done that." The haunting begins. Jake slammed the door and locked it, his hands shaking. His apartment suddenly felt different. The air was thick, charged, like a storm was about to break inside his walls. The shadows in the corners seemed deeper. Then the whispers began. At night, from just outside his bedroom door, faint, indistinct, like a conversation happening just out of reach. His reflection in the bathroom mirror lingered a second too long after he moved. Objects weren't where he left them. Jake stopped sleeping. He had let something in. Seeking answers. Desperate, Jake started researching urban legends about cursed knocks. He found stories of the 3 a.m. visitor, a spirit or entity that tested its victims. If they opened the door, they invited it inside. Some accounts said it was a demon, others a lost soul looking for a new body. But they all ended the same way, with the person vanishing. Jake's hands trembled as he scrolled through forum posts. Was it too late? To the final night 14. Jake sat awake, a baseball bat in one hand, his phone in the other. His only plan was to survive. 3 a.m. Knock, 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 his breath hitched. The sound wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from inside the apartment, from the closet. Slowly, mechanically, he turned his head. The closet door was slightly open, a sliver of darkness deeper than the rest of the room. Then, from inside, A voice that sounded exactly like his own whispered, "Let me out." The escape. Jake bolted. He didn't grab anything. He just ran. Out of the apartment, down the hall, into the night. He didn't stop until he reached a motel miles away. By sunrise, he was calling a moving company. He didn't care about breaking his lease. He had to leave. When he returned with the movers, the apartment was dead silent. No knocking, no whispers. Just an empty, undisturbed room. Except on the inside of the closet door, etched into the wood, were 3 words. "I found you." Jake never looked back, and he never ever answered the door at 3 a.m. again.